Rishi Sharma is a passionate cybersecurity professional. He has worked with companies like Sophos, Trend Micro, F-Secure, HCL, Wipro Technologies. Currently, Rishi is leading the sales engineering activities for end-user activity in security in India and SARC for Sophos. Rishi has solid technical acumen with background, writing white papers and technical sales strategies. Also collaborates with sales, marketing and IT teams to optimize promotion of products and services. All yours, Rishi.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon once again to all of you. So the topic is about the ransomware. I think all of you know about the ransomware, right? Thanks to WannaCry and the Petya. Yeah. But the point which I want to highlight is the ransom, right? It is just like kidnapping of the data. It's nothing more than that, right? Someone just kidnaps your data and asks for the money. But the main thing to be looked upon is the pattern by which this kind of attacks has started coming to the picture. So the digital world as of now is almost like 40-45 years old, digital world, right? Globally. But the physical world, it has been there for the thousands of years. And the crime in the digital world has been inspired from the physical world. In physical world, the crimes used to be like kidnapping someone valuable and then asking for the money. But during the early session as well, right, someone told about the data is the new oil, the data is the new gold. There was a time when the economy of the countries were decided on the basis of the reserve of the gold or the oil which they had. But now the economies will be decided upon the data which they have, because the machines will be running on the data. The smartphones, they are running onto the data itself, right? So I will be starting with a small video first. Can we have the video? Yeah.
In the search for increased security, everyone's talking about machine learning. Let's go beyond the buzzwords to look at what machine learning is capable of, what its limits are, and what Sophos is doing with deep learning neural networks. We'll begin with a model that tries to predict whether a file is benign or malicious using two variables, file size and compression level. First, we train the machine learning model to recognize these two attributes. The model then categorizes a series of test files on an XY axis and establishes a boundary between the two groups. It recognizes that everything on one side of the boundary is malicious, everything on the other side is benign. A new file is then introduced into the model, which is correctly identified as malware, based on which side of the boundary it falls on. But threats are always evolving. Malicious files look more and more like benign files, and two attributes are no longer enough to accurately identify them. So a third attribute is introduced. The model learns that attribute, establishes a boundary along a third axis, and identifies malware that would have otherwise been missed in a two-dimensional model. The more attributes that are fed into a machine learning model, the better it can predict whether a file is malicious or benign. But the most effective models need to expand to 5, 15, even 100 dimensions. And inside these models, the files don't just grow in number. They have highly complex attributes and nonlinear relationships to one another. Under these conditions, traditional machine learning simply can't process the sheer volume of information in a timely manner. And when it is attempted, the resulting models require too much space and computing power to be practical. It is here that deep learning comes to the rescue. Deep learning uses neural networks, which resemble the complex, interconnected neural pathways of the human brain, allowing humans to make instantaneous, coordinated decisions based on massive amounts of stored data and predictive reasoning. Unlike traditional machine learning, our deep learning model processes data through multiple layers of neurons. These layers of neurons make the model exponentially more powerful, allowing it to process hundreds of millions of attributes, far beyond the limits of traditional machine learning. This is the revolutionary advantage of deep learning in InterceptX. Deep learning has made it possible for Sophos to memorize the entire observable threat landscape, every known threat that has ever existed. This information is incorporated into the neural network of InterceptX. Where traditional machine learning struggles with a million pieces of input, Our deep learning model elegantly handles tens of millions, even hundreds of millions, as the most advanced threats are identified, categorized, and blocked in milliseconds. What's more, Sophos' deep learning architecture results in highly compressed models requiring very little space and computing power. These incredible benefits of deep learning are at the heart of Intercept X, allowing it to defeat the most complex malware, known and unknown. And with each passing day, it becomes stronger, smarter, and more agile. While defeating today's biggest threats, it has an eye on what's coming tomorrow.
Right. So this was about the approach which the organization has taken up to cater the malware as a threat, right? Malware is nothing but a malicious software. It can be the ransomware, it can be the normal exploit. With the past traditional approach, right, what the organizations used to do was, it was a reactive approach. The antivirus signatures getting created, getting updated onto the endpoints, and then the malware detection used to happen. So there was a reaction onto the virus part, right? There was no predictive approach. But with the deep learning incorporation in the art portfolio, or I will say the approach which we have taken up is the automation, the judgment call, the probability, how we can, you can say, reduce the false positives as well in terms of the probable, whether it's a genuine file or it's a malicious file. So talking about the India snapshot, right? So India snapshot, you can see like the landscape wise, 50% of the threats are ransomware. And now the active adversary techniques which are coming into the picture along with the crypto mining. So the crypto mining is nothing but stealing the CPU cycles of your hardware itself. Active adversary techniques like the credential theft, the process privilege escalation, the code cave evacuation, right? So these are the techniques which are being employed by the attackers to launch the attack or to compromise the endpoint or the server, or I will say the IT asset. Like all of you are using the smartphones as well, right? All of you also do the net banking onto it. But how many of you have installed security software on your mobile phones? Very few. The people who have not installed, right? So you have accepted the risk, correct? And security is all about minimizing the risk. There is no silver bullet for security, but it's all about how much risk we can minimize, that too on a predictive approach or on a reactive approach. But going forward, everything should be predictive, especially security, so that we can take a judgment call and any of the threat can be mitigated in a very small time frame, right? And without compromising the performance of the IT asset. So that is where the Sophos, like we have incorporated the deep learning technology. So, and the deep learning is everywhere as of now, be it Alexa, be it your mobile phones or the camera, right? Be it the voice recognition or the facial recognition softwares which are available. And on a similar pattern, we have deployed the deep learning capabilities for the malware detection from the cybersecurity perspective, right? And in that particular perspective, the solution has been designed and the approach has been designed just to get a good judgment call with a high probability, whether it was a genuine file or it was a malicious file. Because if the signatures are there, right? If the signatures are there, again I want to highlight onto the approach part. Everyone can detect. When the WannaCry came into the picture, right? When Petya came into the picture or the crypto lockers came into the picture, as of now, everyone is able to detect them because they are signature available. And every OEM has, or everyone has detected that signature and deployed to, you can say, analyze the behavior, whether it was which variant of the ransomware. But what about the unseen malware? How that particular model is trained to detect the maliciousness in those particular unseen malwares or unknown malwares. So deep learning malware detection have a good advantage because these are being signatureless spaces. It works totally on a signatureless. That's why we are very much predictive and without compromising the efficiency of the IT asset. Most of the time when you can say the organizations go with the endpoint security or a server security as a solution, the first thing which they highlight is the performance issues. Like after deploying this, the performance has been downgraded. The slowness has been encountered. So with the incorporation of the deep learning mechanisms in our solutions, we have reduced that particular performance in terms of the footprint, right? In terms of getting the resources aligned, so that we can make an informed decision which is 20 MB in size. And if I talk about the detection, you can say rate, or in how much time we detect the malware or the malicious activity, it's 20 millisecond. So that is where we have a good advantage in terms of the traditional security part. But at the same time, it is not a replacement of your traditional security part. It is like a complementary to your existing endpoint security. That is where we have an edge. When the WannaCry came into the picture, or I will say 5 years back, when the ransomware incidents were increasing, and they will be on an increasing side itself. There will not be a slowness in that, because the threat landscape is always evolving, and the solutions also need to evolve over a period of time, because evolution is better than revolution. The solutions also need to be evolved over a period of time. That is why we have incorporated deep learning, and again, which will help us for the predictive security part, in which we are offering the better protection, better performance, and the better accuracy. Accuracy in terms of the number of false positives. Because if it is a genuine file which is being reported as a malicious file, it is a kind of a, you can say, the business loss as well, in which the end user is not able to perform on that particular file, which will involve certain kind of a policy changes, and then he will be able to work upon, right? And that can be the irritating behavior for the end user as well, like why this particular solution is not capable enough to take a very much informed decision, right? And artificial intelligence, it's a quite big domain, and Sophos has come out by application of AI in cybersecurity as a field, and we have come up a long way from AI to the machine learning, and now we have a new, you can say, the refined version of machine learning, which is deep learning. We have designed a model in which, you can say, the capability of self-judgment comes in. Now the first part which I want to highlight again is how that particular model is trained, right? One is, if I take an example of one candidate who is a matric student, one candidate who is a master's or a graduate level, right? If we supply a similar kind of information to both of them will take an informed decision on the basis of their experience as well as the education or the training which they have gone through. So there is a good chance the guy with a more experience and a more, you can say, the knowledge will take a more informed decision. Yes, exceptions are always there, but if I want to talk in a generic manner, the guy who has a good experience and the good data with him, he will take an informed decision. And that is where we have developed, or I will say trained that model with the 30 years of malware definitions which we had in our labs, and the correlation has been done to take a very much informed decision. And the correlation is done, you can say, in this particular manner. Like there are multiple algorithms like the decision tree or the random forest or the Bayesian algorithms which were implemented in a silos. But with the deep learning capabilities, we have incorporated, you can say, the correlation in between them. They are able to talk to each other, and they are able to take the more informed decision, right? And that will also give you the more specific output, whether it was a genuine file or it was a malicious file. And again, the faster, smaller, and the smarter. The faster in terms of the detection. You can see the capabilities for machine learning or the deep learning, what is the difference, right? From 20 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds. The smaller imprint, which is, you can say, the resource utilization onto the running memory of the system, right? Smarter in terms of higher detection rates. And recently, with the deep learning model, we had 2 false positives in a sample of 10 lakh malware samples. So that is quite minimal, right? So again, predictive security. Again, I want to highlight is, it is not a replacement of the traditional endpoint security, but it is a complement to the existing endpoint security. Most of the organizations have a mindset, earlier it was, okay, on a single machine, no 2 antiviruses can work together. No 2 security softwares can work together, right? Still, most of the people will have that particular approach. But with the deep learning capabilities, what we have done is we have started complementing the existing endpoint security. What I want to mean by the complementing the existing endpoint security is like, Isaka event is happening here, right? If someone wants to kidnap me, and if I talk about the traditional security, I have a guard at the perimeter level, that's it, right? Or a guard at the lift, right? But if someone wants to kidnap me here itself, what should be the approach? I need to have a bodyguard with me, right? Or a similar approach, you can also correlate from you can say the physical world or a physical life. The one is, if you want to prevent your kidnapping, either the self-defense mechanism should be very strong, right? Otherwise, it can be outsourced in terms of to hire a bodyguard, which will complement your existing security circle. So that is what we have taken up is like complementing your existing endpoint security in terms of signatureless protection mechanism. And again, it can work with any of the endpoint security solution in place. And I want to highlight about the exploit techniques as well, like the DLL hijacking. Most of the time when the DLL file goes missing, we download or take the file from some another machine or from the unknown source. If it is unknown source, there is a good chance to get compromised. Dynamic linked libraries, because once the execution, you can say the execution happens of that DLL, what linking is happening at the back end, right? Where the data is going, what data is being accessed, by which application it is being accessed, right? How it is being accessed, what siphon of the data is happening at that particular moment, whether someone is trying to initiate a command on a remote manner or whether someone is trying to do a lateral movement across the network. Because we have to assume the data is the new gold as of now, the new oil. Everyone is behind the data. If you talk about the Google Android smartphones, they track everything and we are happily giving the data to them. And on that databases, they are just doing the sales part, right? The code cave evacuation. Whenever any application is being designed, they always talk about, give certain buffer, right, to that particular application when it is running into the memory. How we can, or how the solution can judge that particular application memory, like no other malicious code is being injected into that particular buffer, right? So that approach, that active adversary mitigation should be there in place, which are, I will say, the deny the attacker techniques, means denying those particular techniques which are being adopted by the attacker to compromise the IT infrastructure or the IT asset. The same is the case with process hijacking, means hijacking the process, whether it can be the security related process, because whenever the attacker will try to come into the scenario or to the IT asset or to the IT infrastructure, they will try to hijack the security process. They want to, you can say, stop the security modules running into the system. If not, they will also try to do, you can say, the process privilege escalation. The solution should be strong enough so that it can protect itself, right? And if I talk about the life cycle, right, the reconnaissance happens, the scanning happens, the access, and the attackers try to maintain the access and then escape. Have you heard about this one, the North Korea and the South Korea? It was about 4 years back. It was the 20th of March, which is the war anniversary for North Korea and the South Korea. And in that particular scenario, North Korea compromised the local, you can say, the attack was the waterhole attack, in which the local websites were compromised. Whenever the users were trying to access those websites, a malware was getting dropped into the system. And the message in that particular malware was to get activated at 2 p.m. When that particular activity happened, the complete, you can say, the financial industry, the hospitality, the tourism, they were impacted a long time. You can say very badly, I will say. And the message which they wanted to highlight to South Korea was, your government cannot protect you, right? So they will have a, you can say, the clear trace. They will try to maintain a persistence without knowing, because until the execution happens, because the point which I wanted to highlight, it was the 2 p.m. when the malware which was dropped long back, it got executed. Since before execution, no one was able to detect that. How that particular behavior can be judged, even if the malware means the file is not getting executed or running into the memory, right? So that is where the deep learning capabilities of the solution will help to protect in a very much predictive manner. And these are some of the exploits and the active adversary techniques which we have. I will say these are the attacker deny techniques. As I mentioned, like we are totally signatureless. The approach should be totally signatureless. That is where the advantage will come in, because the threats which are being missed from the traditional endpoint security, they will be coming up to this, you can say, the bodyguard, which can cater to attack the means to destroy the techniques which are being adopted. Just to name a few, like the load library the WoW64 system calls, hollow process, DLL hijacking, malicious shell code, VB script. And what we have done is we have incorporated these 25 techniques, taken a permutation and combination of these techniques by which a new technique to come into the IT infrastructure can be created. As of now, they are 25. Over a period of days, they will definitely increase, and we will be incorporating them as well, because the deep learning model has to be trained in a consistent manner. And the frequency should also match, like it should not be getting updated on a daily basis or a weekly basis. If that is the case, means the training or the maturity of that model is not there, right? So we offer like the release of the the deep learning model is once in a month. And there has been many instances in which the model is very much mature, and there were 2 months time frame many times in which the no new release was, you can say, designed, because the solution was quite mature. And how it works is like whenever, like if I talk about the delivery of the ransomware, right, from installing the anti-exploit capabilities, the quarantine ransomware before it runs, right, before it runs, that is where we have an edge in terms of the being very much predictive in nature. And then stop the malicious encryption, roll back any changes. So this is specifically for the ransomware part, right? This is the approach that we have taken. And the best part with this is like, before I proceed further, how many of you heard about the EDR capabilities? One. No one else, the EDR. It's a buzzword as of now in the security. So it's endpoint detection and response, but it is more focused onto the analytics part only. If you have an EDR, it doesn't mean that you are much secure. It's more onto the analytics part. Analytics in terms of, you can say, from where the threat came in, what it tried to do, kind of a forensic analysis, and the curated threat intelligence, which has been a part of the EDR. So that is, you can say, not a full, I will say the full-fledged security part, but it is not a replacement for your traditional endpoint security. And we have also come up with the similar kind of analytics part in which you can say you can take a much more informed decision. For example, I will want to correlate the security part, the analytics part from a physical world. Like whenever we have a certain, you can say, the body changes when we observe. We go to a doctor. Most of the time the doctor says, have this test conducted. After seeing that report, he says, you don't require any medicine, just have these best practices in place. So the point is, he has got the visibility from that blood report, right? And he has used that information like no medicine is required. Had it been, he would have given. So it's all about the visibility. So analytics, right? They give you the visibility. This deep learning also provides you the analytics part in which the incident which has been blocked into your IT infrastructure, it will give you the life cycle of that particular incident, whether it came from email as an attachment. So the application associated to that will be Outlook. So it will tell you the root and the cause. The root is the file which came out from the email, and the application which was used to read that particular, or you can say the email which come up is Outlook. So that visibility is there, and once that execution or before execution, I will say the pre and the post execution, what was the behavior of that particular file, where it tried to connect, what were the child processes which were dropped in that particular memory, what were the child files which were created into the temp file. So that visibility is there, and once you have that visibility, you can say correlated threat intelligence will come into the picture, and you can harden your existing IT infra using that particular information. So that is more into like the deep learning capabilities, and I will say the root cause analysis of that incident. And talking about the complete IT infrastructure, the approach which organizations have taken is like they want best at the perimeter, they want best at the endpoint, they want best in the application security, they want best in the Wi-Fi security, they want best in the encryption solution, they want best in the, you can say, the email security solution. So if we are having that particular approach, we end up having 7 to 8 different security solutions in our IT infrastructure. But 3 weeks back, the CSO has released one, you can say, the survey in which 66% of the CIOs agreed on that particular part, like they are looking for cybersecurity consolidation part. Means instead of having the multi-vendor approach in the IT infrastructure, because if they are having that approach, they have to manage 7 to 8 different dashboards, right? 7 to 8 different technologies which are working independently, correct? And they have to invest more onto the manpower as well, right? So that is where, like, before coming to that scenario, the approach from the endpoint security, or I will say, which is a standalone solution, and InterceptX, which is a complementary solution to your existing endpoint security. And the key highlight is the synchronized security part. Means just think about a scenario in which in your IT infrastructure, in your office, one of the laptop or the desktop is doing very much malicious activity. Does your firewall at the perimeter block that endpoint? Yes or no? Yes? No, right? Because endpoint is working independently and the perimeter is working independently. There is no threat intelligence sharing in between them, correct? So that is where we talk about the synchronized security. You can say on the right side, the endpoint security solutions, and on the left side, the perimeter security solutions. It can be the UTM, it can be your Wi-Fi access points, email security, or the web security. At the same time, the mobile device management. MDM is you can say a long, the old term as of now, but now it's UEM, Unified Endpoint Management, because endpoint is an endpoint. Even your mobile is an endpoint now, because you are accessing the official data onto that mobile phone, correct? The server security, the encryption. What is the weakest link in the complete security chain? All of you agree on that part? I will say the human behavior, right? The human behavior, there is no way to judge that or quantify that human behavior. Most of the time, we end up, what as a practice we end up is like calling the people in a, you can say, the office conference room, doing them a half-day cybersecurity training, right? And then that's it. But the point is, which means the attendee of that particular cybersecurity training is diligently following that particular process. There is no way to quantify until the security breach happens, correct? So the end user training and awareness should also be in the portfolio of the organizations, in which, like, Diwali and Dussehra is coming up, right? There will be a huge spam campaigns which will be running across. You will be getting the emails, and there is no way to judge in a proper fashion whether that email is a genuine or a phishing email. So we have also come up with that solution as well, in which we do the end user training and awareness, in which as an IT administrator you can launch a simulated campaigns, and in that campaigns you can have a intensity increased from the spam perspective in terms of whether it's a normal phishing email, whether it's credential harvesting attack, or it's kind of a, you can say, the attachment campaign, attaching some, you can say, the Word file or the Excel file and enable the macros in that. So that analytics, when it is there with you, which user has clicked up, which user has tried to enter the credentials in that simulated email, you can have a top to bottom approach. The message will go from the management to the employees, like this was a spam campaign and you have been captured in that. Everyone will be more aware in that scenario. Because whenever we encounter a means in a mall itself, like you are under a CCTV surveillance, everyone is very much attentive, right? That message should be there with the end user, because if that is not there, still he is the weakest link. The source of the ransomware, still it was email as the biggest source, because IT users, which are, I will say, which are not very much well savvy with the IT, like from the design, means any department can be, right? They will say they received one email, they just click on that, and after that everything was encrypted. So there was no judgment call whether to judge whether that email was a spam or a genuine email, correct? So that should be always an ongoing practice, right? So that should also be looked upon, like if I talk about the RBI guidelines. So they have also said the end user training and awareness should be there in the IT security portfolio. And again, coming to that endpoint security, or I will say the synchronized security concept, we have incorporated the deep learning starting from the endpoint to the perimeter, as well as the sandboxing as well. So deep learning is also the part of our sandboxing portfolio. And seeing the future is the future of cybersecurity, because it's not always like this is a solution which is designed and it will protect you down the line 5 years. Evolution is better than revolution. Again, from the security perspective, I think all of you will be having laptops or the desktop for the home purpose as well. Everyone has that, right? How many of you have invested in an antivirus software? So it is you can say the renewal you always do for the 1 year, right? So the key takeaway for today's session for you is stop using the purchased antivirus. What Sophos has done is they have created a special version which is home edition, which is free for the end users, for the home users, or I will say the consumer users. Sophos.com/home, you just create an account with any of your email ID and use the corporate grade security free for the home users. And the same is the case with the mobile security. Even if you are Android users, you can use Sophos mobile security without any cost for the consumers. For the corporates, definitely the cost is there, but for consumers, the Sophos says we want to give it as a complimentary. We don't want to be a part in that market segment. So,
harvesting data for your neural networks.
yes, that is also there, yes. But at the same time, we are also providing the security. The control is with you only, yes. That is, I will say, the one kind of a sensor which is there for the Sophos labs. Because down the line, you can say, machines will be working only on the data. Only on the data.
If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
But again, it's all about this. One is the companies which charge, they also collect the same thing, right? So,
We are used to it. There's nothing more free.
right.
That's why the moment you said free, my antenna went up.
Yes, that is, I will say, I totally agree with you. That is the agenda behind that also, to get the more inputs in terms of the SHA values, right? So that we can take a more informed decision and the model can be trained accordingly. Yes. So we are open up for question and answers. If you have any questions, I will be happy to address.
Hi, my name is Shaunak. I'm
Hi,
from
Shaunak.
Paramount Computer Systems, and it was a very lovely talk on how the malware has evolved over ages and how your product can overcome all the recent advancements. I wanted to know that how does this product fare when it comes to advanced persistent threats and when the malware is polymorphic. In polymorphic malwares, how do you do it? Because you said that you have used the data, say of 30 years old data,
Correct.
right, to train the machine. But in advanced persistent threats, you don't have that much old data because they are custom developed. So how
Correct.
does that work?
Right. So again, as I said, it is not a replacement for the traditional endpoint security, right? So the one thing is for the APTs, the buzzword for APT was a sandboxing, and the malwares, they are very much intelligent now. They are sandbox evading as well. Exactly. So the only thing is how they get entry point to the endpoint, right? It's all about whenever the APT will also come into the picture, it will do the execution in the memory itself, because the fileless malwares have also coming up. So it's all about the judgment call in terms of the maliciousness. What are the different attributes that we check? So that any file which gets executed in the memory or which is into the pre-execution or a post-execution phase, the layers are dwelt by the Sophos solution to check the behavior of that. That behavior, again, it is checked on the basis of the correlation intelligence that is there in our deep learning model.
Any other questions? So I request Kumar to hand over the memento to the speaker.
So thank you, team. Thanks for the time. Thanks for your patience. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Presentation was very crisp.
Right. Thank you, sir. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thanks,
Thank you,
Isaka.
Rishi. Thanks a lot. 85. Thank you. Next. 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 Next.